set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of gold and blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tavon Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Boot. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the gold and blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, May 15th edition, and we've got a couple of football topics to talk about here. A roster re-edition, someone that we had thought was going to be leaving WVU has appeared back on the university's official roster, so we're going to update our CRW roster tracker here, talk a little bit about that momentarily. But the main crux of the show here is I thought it'd be fun to take a look at each transfer that West Virginia's added here in the post-spring cycle and kind of see where West Virginia improved the most this spring. We knew kind of the target areas they wanted to improve. Did they achieve that? And of the areas, the positions where they added recruits here, they added transfers, which one of these is the most improved for the upcoming season now following this transfer portal cycle? So that'll kind of be the main thing. We'll take a look at the official roster, where it stood at all these positions where West Virginia added players, and combine that with the transfer additions and see where West Virginia improved the most. And then, of course, for this transfer portal cycle as well, I do want to do a signing superlatives like I did in the last transfer portal cycle, but I'll save that for another podcast episode in the future where I can dive into that further. This episode probably won't be too lengthy. Do got to head off to work here in a little bit, but thought this would be some fun stuff to talk about here with the transfer class, and also kind of gives us a position by position breakdown of where West Virginia added players in this portal cycle. So going to be a fun stream here, and I appreciate you guys that are tuning into it live, whether on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Those of you that are on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads webcast YouTube channel, subscribe here so you can get access to the pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes in addition to these live streams. But if you're watching here on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, help us out by hitting that thumbs up button. Help us with that YouTube algorithm. We really appreciate that, and appreciate you guys to listen to these after the fact on the audio side as well. You can find us on any podcast platform you like, and if you listen there, leave us a rating. That helps out on those side of things. So with no further ado, let's talk about the roster re-edition, because funny enough, this one kind of snuck in under the radar a little bit. Every now and again, I'll take a peek at WVU's official roster just to see if there's any changes that I didn't notice, and here lately there was one. So let's start back with when this first occurred of him leaving the roster. So you can go back to our roster update playlist here on the channel, and it was the April 17th roster update. You see here, I got it pulled up on the screen. We added a group of names here to our transfer out list. There was 4 names that were added that had been removed from the WVU football official roster, and 3 of these, it seems like, were definitely transferring out. One of them, it seems like, is not actually transferring out, because now, lo and behold, I don't know exactly when he popped back up on there, but I saw it as early as last night that Noah Braham, the West Virginia tight end, which funny enough, because he's the one that I mentioned in that video talking about the transfers out that I was most surprised by because of his history with, Rich Braham being at WVU with Rich with Rich Rod. So, thought he would stick around and be a good addition to this roster, especially with his abilities as a potential blocking tight end. And lo and behold, he pops back up on the official roster. You see him there, 6'3", 244, still listed as a redshirt sophomore. So left and then decided to come back potentially. Maybe West Virginia doing some finagling with the roster there to help, with these upcoming roster limits and the ability to grandfather in players. Could be a scholarship issue. There's different ways to do things with these new NIL days. You can offer NIL things to cover scholarships. So maybe that was it. Maybe they needed to free up some scholarships, had him leave, and then, that frees up a scholarship. And then when he comes back, they don't necessarily give him an official scholarship back, but they pay his tuition with NIL money or something like that. Could be one of those situations. But nonetheless, I think it's a great addition because we know West Virginia's added 2 tight ends in this portal cycle, right? And now we can keep Noah Braham on the roster. It's almost like 3 tight end additions this transfer portal cycle, which let me pull back up the transfer tracker here because we can take off Noah Braham. So actually the rare occasion of removing a name from the transfer out list as Noah Braham back on WVU's roster, which I'll pull up our roster tracker and show you guys him now and show you guys the tight end position, which will be a great transition into what we want to talk about here as the main crux of the show, being where West Virginia improved the most this spring. Actually, at tight end, we previously thought we only had 2 scholarship players, neither one of which had played at WVU in the past, and Colin McBee. Now we had Noah Braham back in the mix as well, so you have 4 and you're adding 2 more. That's 6 tight ends. That's a healthy room there for the tight end position. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about West Virginia in this post-spring transfer portal cycle. This isn't the complete transfer class for West Virginia. I covered the other one kind of when it happened in that window, cover this one when it happens in this window to kind of, make it easier to digest, so to speak. Maybe at some point we'll go back and talk about all 50 transfers at once and do like a mass transfer signings superlatives list or something like that. But here in this stream, I just kind of want to focus in on West Virginia's position by position breakdown of what they added in this post-spring transfer portal window, because I think in that first portal window, you see West Virginia's kind of strategy be, let's take as many guys as possible because we know we're going to have to, cut down the roster in spring anyway. So bring a bunch of guys in and essentially have a tryout, so to speak, right? And then in this portal window, they've had the more targeted strategy of going out and filling needs. So I think that this is an interesting thing to look at here, is look at it position by position, because you can really see where they felt the needs were, where they added the most people, where they targeted the most people, and we can see where West Virginia improved and why they felt they needed to improve, because we'll take a look at the ads and we'll take a look at the roster after the spring, portal departures and see where West Virginia's roster sat and why they felt like they needed to add to these pieces. So let's see which position we feel like improved the most here post-spring football. West Virginia shaping up this roster for the start of the Rich Rod 2.0 era. Let's take a look here at the position-by-position breakdown for West Virginia here in this transfer portal class. Let me pull that up here. I've got that written up. Okay, so we'll just go through it here, starting with the running back spot. We know in this portal cycle, West Virginia added Jalen Knighton, the impact transfer from 2 power conference stops there in the ACC, at Miami and SMU, and then Cannon Katzer, probably an underrated addition coming from a championship team there at Ferris State, and he really averaged nearly 9 yards per carry. Good addition there. And then potentially Sincere Bowers. You see the asterisk there for the JUCO additions. If you see an asterisk beside a player, that's a JUCO addition actually. But I have heard from my friend Mountaineer Paul over at Locked On that Sincere Bowers is kind of waiting to see if his credits will transfer. It may be that he ends up coming a part of the 2026 additions instead of coming this year. We'll see how it shapes out. But nonetheless, the running back additions here West Virginia has made, I think Knighton probably the most impactful. Katzer has a chance as well, but Katzer's also kind of the multiple years addition. So you see West Virginia go out and get someone that can help right away in a 1-year guy in Jalen Knighton, and then someone that can help potentially now and definitely in the future with Katzer. So we take a look now at the West Virginia running back position on the roster post-spring, and we see why they went out and targeted some running backs, right? Let's pull this up here on our roster tracker and talk about the running back spot, how it stood heading into this portal window. So at the running back position here, West Virginia had Ty Edwards, who they brought in the first portal window, who's a 1-year guy, but he's more of a, short yardage back, a goal line back, kind of a bigger back, but don't sleep on his speed. He's kind of similar to CJ Donaldson with a little bit more speed, but I think with the way West Virginia's running back room shaping up, you'll see him kind of be used more short yardage situations, goal line versus I think the main backs that'll get carries will be Jaheim White, Jalen Knighton, and potentially Dewar Hubbard. I think Dewar Hubbard and Jalen Knighton is going to be a nice battle to see who's the back that gets the kind of second most carries there behind Jaheim. But Ty Edwards will get his fair share because behind, those three scholarship players, you only had the former walk-on Clay Ash. So that's why you go see West Virginia add multiple running backs, at least two, potentially three here to this roster. And I would say they definitely improved the running back room. You had Jaheim White, who you knew was going to be the starter, the go-to, the guy that's going to have a huge year in this Rich Rod offense. You guys know I'm a huge fan. You had Ty Edwards, who you brought in, you think has good potential coming from the FCS level, but you don't really know yet how he's going to work at WVU. And then Dewar Hubbard, who really, kind of turned heads in the spring, but he's unproven as well. So you go out, you get a guy that's proven in Jalen Knighton, and then you get another young guy to add to the room to help you bodies wise there, help you numbers wise at the running back position. So that's what West Virginia did there. We'll kind of break this down position by position. Then I'll tell you which room I think West Virginia improved the most here in this spring portal window. So there's the running backs West Virginia added. Now let's talk about the wide receivers West Virginia added in this portal window, because I think we all knew that was an area West Virginia needed to target, particularly outside receivers. When we pull up the roster here in a moment, you'll see a lot of names at the receiver position, but a lot of those guys were, kind of more fits for the slots positions there on the offense, not outside receivers. And we knew that Rich Rod said they wanted to add speed. So I think that's why you see them go out and do just that in this portal cycle. They get Christian Hamilton, a wide receiver with a really high ceiling from UNC, Justin Smith-Brown, another outside receiver from South Carolina State. Both those guys have speed, both similar frames, 6 foot 190, 6'1", 190. At Jack State, Jordan McCants hadn't really proven a lot yet on the field necessarily, but they did like his potential, and they like his speed as well and the ability to play outside. And then Logan Ramper gives you another outside receiver, and he brings something to the table that West Virginia hadn't had yet on the roster, and that's that length, that's that size that you need. Sometimes you do need at least one of those targets that's long and rangy that you can throw up and tell them to, go high point the football in those scenarios. And Logan Ramper's a guy that could fit that bill. But I think all these additions, you see West Virginia add guys that can play on the outside because that's what they needed at the receiver position. But 4 receivers added here in this portal cycle for the Mountaineers, which if we pull up our roster tracker here, we can see why they went out and added those guys into the mix there with, some of the guys they lost at receiver and with what they were left with post-spring here. As you see, not a ton of names here, but as you look at the list here, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers was all you had. That's not nearly enough probably. And especially when you look here and you look at the list, you can see, can Preston Fox play outside? Yeah, he can play outside or inside, but probably more of a fit for inside. We'll see where he ends up. Man Singleton that you brought in the first portal window, inside receiver, slot guy. Jared Bowie that you brought in the first portal window from Jack State, slot guy. Jarrell Williams maybe can play either. Rodney Gallagher, inside receiver, slot guy. Cam Vaughn, outside receiver. Cyrus Straw, slot receiver. So you see on this list, really Cam Vaughn and Jaden Bray are the only 2 guys that you could say 100% those are definite outside guys. So you needed to add some names to that list, and you do just that. You had Christian Hamilton, you had Justin Smith-Brown, you had Logan Ramper, even Jordan McCants, who's a guy that was probably more of a guy for the future. But I think right away with Smith-Brown, with Logan Ramper, and with Christian Hamilton as well, all of those guys are going to compete with Jaden Bray and Cam Vaughn to see who's going to be the 2 deep at those outside receiver spots. Do Bray and Vaughn have a leg up? Maybe, particularly Vaughn. I would be shocked if Vaughn's not a starter at one of the outside receiver spots, but you still need a guy to split snaps with him. You need a guy to start on the other side. Could it be Jaden Bray potentially? Could it be, Christian Hamilton, Justin Smith-Brown, or Logan Ramper? I think they're going to have a chance. And let's not rule out another guy as well that West Virginia is going to be adding to this mix, which we can talk about this list as well, because there are, of course, a few other players that are going to be joining throughout the summer, which are the freshmen and JUCO additions West Virginia made in that first cycle there, the National Signing Day and early signing day. And one transfer is wide receiver Jeff Weimer, who's another outside receiver potentially. So West Virginia definitely has guys that are going to compete for those outside receiver spots. But I certainly think they did some good things to improve the receiver position here in this portal cycle as we continue our breakdown here of position by position, and then we'll kind of decide where we think West Virginia improved the most this spring. Maybe we'll do an offensive defensive selection for that. But nonetheless, let's talk here and continue on and talk now about the tight end additions West Virginia brought in this portal cycle. 2 of those, but as we just talked about here to lead off this stream, Noah Braham, is a guy that's back on the roster. So it's almost like you have 3 tight end additions because he was the guy that you thought you were going to lose. But as far as actual transfers in, you get Grayson Barnes, who's a 1-year guy, going to help you right away. Phenomenal receiving tight end from Northern Illinois. And you bring in Ryan Ward, who's the multi-year guy that's going to help you in the future, can maybe help you even currently. He has a super high ceiling. UNC wanted to keep him. A lot of programs were really after him out of high school. And then when he hit the portal here as well with his eligibility remaining. And I think you see here West Virginia's strategy in a lot of these positions, if it's somewhere somewhere where they need to fill bodies, let's go out, let's get a guy that can help us right away. And let's get a guy or 2 that can help us potentially not only maybe now, but also in the future. And I think that's what you see here at the tight end spot with Grayson Barnes and Ryan Ward. So that's the 2 additions you will be adding to the tight end room at WVU, which we kind of talked about this one briefly already, but let's pull it back up just as a refresher because West Virginia's tight end room was pretty bare. We thought we only had, 2 scholarship guys and a former walk-on in McBee, but we now have Noah Braham there as well. So with those that you're added, we'll have 6 bodies there at the tight end spot, being Greg Genross, who I think is a guy that has good potential. He was a really highly rated JUCO addition last year for WVU. Hopefully he's ready to contribute. Great size, nearly 6'7". Jacob Barrick obviously has experience in the system, coming over from Jack State. Colin McBee, the former walk-on. And then Noah Braham, I think, has good blocking capabilities and has potential to play in this offense. West Virginia is going to play probably at least 3 of these guys this season, maybe even play 4 of them this upcoming season. But when you're adding Grayson Barnes to the mix, he's not coming here not to play. I think if I'm picking a starter out of this group, Grayson Barnes is probably day 1 starter there at the tight end spot just because of what he can add for you in the receiving game. And of course, he can block as well. And then Ryan Ward is going to have a chance to get in the mix and get some snaps also. I think, Barnes will get snaps. Genross will get snaps. Barrick will get snaps. If West Virginia uses a 4th tight end at times, that's going to be a toss-up. Will it be Braham? Will it be Ward? Will it be McBee? We'll see how it pans out. But I definitely think West Virginia improved the tight end position because I think they potentially added their starter here in this portal window there at the tight end spot. So that's what we're talking about there as far as those additions. Now let's highlight one that we were all wanting West Virginia to really go out and add players at here in this portal cycle, and that's the offensive line. We knew coming out of the spring, everyone was saying it in the comments and saying it on social media that we had to improve the offensive line. Well, the staff certainly took note and noticed it as well. 6 offensive linemen added for West Virginia in this cycle. A lot of these guys, guys with, 1 year remaining, it's about half and half between guys with 1 year and guys with multiple years. But you see West Virginia go out, add multiple players from the SEC, 4 players from the SEC in this portal cycle. They added a couple from the SEC in the last portal cycle. And you mix that in with some really probably underrated guys there on this offensive line. And West Virginia certainly has improved the offensive line this portal cycle. There's no denying that. Is it the most improved room? We'll see after we go through this full list, but it's definitely one that's probably in the mix just by full volume, alone there, just on the quantity that they've added. But you look at the offensive line additions, Mikael Clay was one of the first portal additions in this cycle, in this portal window, and he's probably the most underrated addition West Virginia brought in on the offensive line. I think he's got a chance to come in and start. He certainly is one that they really targeted and went after early, often, and kind of, got a commitment from him as quickly as possible. Josh Isosa from Oklahoma, probably more of an interior guy. I don't know how much he'll factor into the competition this year, but he's definitely a guy with a really high ceiling for the future. Malik Ogbo, I think, has a chance to factor into the competition this season. Another interior guy there. And then Carson Lee. If Mikael Clay is not the most underrated, I think Carson Lee is probably the most underrated because he's not being talked about enough. 6'3", 320, went to Mississippi State, decides to transfer again after the spring, ends up at WVU. And here's a guy that started multiple positions at Eastern Michigan, but played center most recently. And I like Landon Livingston as much as the next guy, and I know he's one guy that's going to be up for potentially starting. Did that throughout the spring there at the center spot. But Carson Lee and him are going to be a good competition. Keep your eye on that battle for the starting center spot because I think Carson Lee's coming in to compete for it. And I would not be surprised to see him end up as a day 1 starter there at the center position for WVU. So Isosa, Ogbo, and Lee, all more interior guys. Haslam, probably more of a tackle coming from Austin P, 6'4", 330. And then Aiden Bustle, I really love that addition because he can help you now. He can help you in the future, 6'5", 315, coming from the SEC. And I think he's a guy that maybe has the highest ceiling of any of these additions that West Virginia made in this cycle. So keep an eye on Bustle as well. We'll see if he factors in. But with what West Virginia had post-spring, let's pull up their offensive line. We knew they needed to add multiple. They certainly went out and did just that. More than a handful of additions. And when you look at the roster here, you see why. When we go to offensive line, West Virginia does have some guys they brought in the first cycle, right? When you look at Tyke Crawford, Kimo Makanaole, Walter Youngbear, and then they do have some young potential guys in Xavier Bosley, Landon Livingston that we just talked about, Nick Cray. I think all those guys have potential. Below that, the names on this list are all guys that are probably more developmental guys, so to speak. So, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys maybe that you think can play this year. That's not even enough for a 2 deep. So, West Virginia had to go out and get at least 3 or 4 guys. They go out, they add 6 more. And what I think is interesting is a lot of the guys that they added are other guys that have, 1 year of eligibility remaining. So you go out, you get 3 seniors in the first portal window. You add more seniors in the mix this portal window. So you're really committed to saying, hey, let's get a bunch of guys that we believe are good football players on the offensive line. Let them battle it out. Let's find our best 5, and then we'll fill out our 2 deep with the rest. And I think that's a really good strategy to take for West Virginia. I do like Tyke Crawford, Kimo, and Walter Youngbear, but they're not solidified. They may have been the quote-unquote starters in the spring, but these guys that West Virginia is bringing in now are coming in to compete for these starting jobs. So we'll see how it ends up, but I think West Virginia definitely improved the offensive line here in this portal cycle and in a big, bad way, and they needed to. It was a necessity to go out and do it. So it's certainly up for the debate of most improved here, but we got a couple more positions to talk about. That may wrap us up on the offensive additions here in this portal cycle, but on the defense, let's talk about what West Virginia added here, because not as many additions on the defensive side of things, but you can see they definitely felt like they needed to add some more to the defensive line. And I think we've talked a lot about West Virginia having really good edge rushers on this team. That's certainly solidified. They went out and added more at the linebacker spot. We probably had that as the biggest need on the defense was more linebackers. They go get a couple, or they go get another edge rusher even. Then they add multiple players to the secondary, which they added a ton to in that first portal cycle. I think you see here in this portal cycle at the cornerback spot, really more guys for the future, the safeties, where you go out and get a guy that can compete right away. But let's go position by position here on the defensive side. Defensive line. 2 guys here you add. Elijah Simmons, who you see there as shown by the asterisk, a junior college guy coming from Garden City, but similar frame here, 6'2", 280 for him. But Eddie Kelly coming from Missouri at 6'4", 280, probably one of the more impactful additions West Virginia's brought in this portal cycle, and probably hasn't been talked about enough because I think he's going to come in and compete for a starting job. So those are 2 guys you add to the defensive line there with Eddie Kelly and Elijah Simmons. Let's pull up the West Virginia defensive line here on our roster tracker and talk about how we feel like that improves things here as we switch over to the D line here. Some of these guys are more interior, some of these guys are more DNs. I think Eddie Kelly gives you a defensive end guy that can help you spell Jamori Robinson at times, split snaps with him. But what I like about Eddie Kelly's game is that he can play probably multiple spots on the D line. And, he's fast enough and was used even at times in Missouri as in pass coverage situations. You could even put him in at bandit if you needed to, which the bandit spot was in for West Virginia. That's why you see them add some edge guys, which maybe Eddie Kelly can help there. But you see the D line, West Virginia has bodies, but they need some guys that can help play right away. You get that in Eddie Kelly. And then, of course, junior college guys can help in Elijah Simmons, and we'll see how he factors into this. I think that helps improve the room there, but you didn't need to improve it a ton. You had a lot of good bodies here that I think you can really count on. Jamori Robinson, one of the best additions in the last portal cycle. Eddie V coming back for a final year. I like Hammond Russell. I like Asani Redwood. Corey McIntyre Jr. is a name to keep an eye on for sure. I like him a lot. And then you look on the edge, Braden Siders and Curtis Jones are going to help you there at the bandit spot. So that's what we have there as far as D-line additions and how I'm kind of feeling about those. Let's talk linebacker, because I think that is one of the ones that we have to discuss here when we talked going into this portal cycle, what West Virginia needed to add. I think probably the positions that came up the most were offensive line and linebacker. And then at linebacker, you see a couple really good additions here I think Ben Bogle from Southern Illinois, people see Southern Illinois and kind of thumb their nose up at that. But Ben Bogle's a really good player, guys. I don't know if he's going to come in and start, but I would not be surprised to see him in the 2 deep at either one of the linebacker spots by any means. Watch him on tape. You'll be impressed with Ben Bogle from Southern Illinois. John Lewis from Mississippi State, not a guy that's played a ton, but this guy has some speed. He can help you at either one of the linebacker spots, or maybe you use him at bandit as well to help you bring some edge pressure. I think, I don't have the note in front of me, but I believe he was 88 speed was my note I made on him on College Football 25, the video game there, when you look at the Mississippi State linebackers last season. So John Lewis, and you love the size that he brings at 6'3", 240. And then Devin Grant is, one of the most recent additions for West Virginia here in the transfer portal window. But man, is he going to help West Virginia bring some edge pressure? I think he's definitely going to that bandit spot. So when you look here, Devin Grant is more of a fit for bandit. Bogle's definitely going to be at, either the Mike or the off-ball linebacker. Lewis could be at either one of those two. Maybe you put him at bandit as well. I don't know exactly, but let's look and see how this improves the roster for West Virginia, whether it's at bandit or the linebacker spot. Take a look at both those, and that'll leave us only with the secondary. So as we go here, take a look at the bandit spot like we talked about. West Virginia with only 2 scholarship guys here, but they really do like Curtis Jones Jr. a lot. They like Braden Siders a lot, who they brought in there. Then you do have a couple of junior college additions who were on that signing list we pulled up earlier in Marshawn Oxley and Keenan Eck, who you'll probably use here at the bandit position. So, you needed another guy there. You get that in Devin Grant. And I think between Devin Grant, Braden Siders, and Curtis Jones, those are 3 guys that I really trust a lot to play at this bandit spot this upcoming season. But then you look at linebacker, and I think you needed some bodies there because I have a lot of faith in Chase Wilson, who West Virginia brought in on the last cycle. I think Reed Carrico is going to be a really good player. Ben Cutter has some experience. Caden Beiser has some snaps. But I think beyond Wilson and Carrico, you needed guys that you could rely on to play right away. I think Ben Bogle's a guy that you could potentially have, do that, and that's probably what he's coming here to do, and I think he will do that. He may compete for one of the 2 spots, but I think he'll be in the 2 deep there. And then maybe John Lewis you factor in here as well. Definitely think Devin Grant's going to the bandit. Maybe John Lewis will go there as well, but I think more likely that he's here at Mike or off-ball linebacker. So when you look at it, you certainly improved it because you added a guy in Ben Bogle who's going to compete with Chase Wilson and Reed Carrico and Ben Cutter, and maybe John Lewis will as well. So that definitely improved the linebacker spot and improved you at edge rusher here with the additions that you made there in the portal, which leaves us with the secondary, which we know West Virginia has a big goal to improve that for this upcoming roster. They went out and made a ton of moves to do that in the last portal cycle, which allowed them to be kind of more targeted at what they needed here in this cycle in the secondary. So you see at cornerback, they say, hey, we really like what we have for this upcoming season. We have guys that we think can help us right away. Let's go out and make a couple additions that can maybe help us more for the future. So they go out, they get Nick Taylor, which kind of comes via the Rod West connection, the new cornerbacks coach that came from App State. I believe he has 3 years of eligibility remaining. And I think Ty Crutcher has 3 years of eligibility remaining. No, he has at least 2. From West Florida, both these guys kind of targeted for their speed. That's the one thing they said they wanted to add to multiple positions, and I feel like they did that. So when we look at the cornerback room, I don't think that it's going to be up for the most improved category that we'll talk about here momentarily now that we're almost done here. We'll discuss where West Virginia most improved the roster in this portal cycle. But I do think you get some more bodies here at the cornerback spot, which you probably needed. You had only 6 left there. That gets you to 8 corners. That's a good number, especially, when you have 5 of those guys that are seniors, or 4 of those guys, that are seniors. You needed to add some more multiple year guys left. You'll also be adding into the mix Kamarius Bomar, Tyrell Russell, and Dwayne Galloway. Out of those, Dwayne Galloway is probably the one that can maybe play right away. Bomar maybe also, but I feel like you're probably not going to be playing any young guys at that spot this season any extensive amount of time because you have Coates, you have Gold Nelson, you have Carter, and you have Chambers. Between those guys, I think that's probably your 2 deep right there. And then you have your young guys behind them that maybe will be more reserved. So not necessarily up for the most improved position here in this portal cycle. That would be more so for last portal cycle here at the cornerback spot, but West Virginia does add bodies and add depth here to their secondary, which they needed to do. Which brings us to talking about the safeties. and maybe talk about the nickel position a little bit as well. But when we look at what West Virginia added at the safety spot, I didn't include the one special teams addition, which is a big one, though, in Cade Hensley, who's going to be West Virginia's place kicker this upcoming season, coming from Coastal Carolina. So the safety position will round out what we want to talk about here. And then after we talk about this, we'll decide which position did West Virginia most improve this spring, and then I'll get to some of your all's comments before I wrap up momentarily. But it's a safety spot. You get kind of Caleb Gray, who's a junior college addition, who's maybe more of a guy that'll help you in the future. But the guy that's going to help you right away is Darian Lewis from Akron. The second addition you made from Akron, last portal cycle, we added Devontae Golder-Nelson, probably Akron's best corner. Now we go out, we get Akron's best safety and Darian Lewis. You look on the College Football 25 video game, both those guys are rated as such. And Darian Lewis, I think, is the highest rated player on the entire Akron defense on the video game. So this is certainly a guy that's coming in right away to improve the position and to compete for a starting job. And let's pull up the safeties and see where we think he can compete at. Because West Virginia did add several bodies there in the last portal cycle as well. That's why you see only really one addition that's probably going to come in and compete with them, with Darian Lewis. When we look at the safety spot here on the roster, post-spring, West Virginia was left with nickel-wise, Jordy Scruggs, Fred Perry, and Zay Jennings. And then safety-wise, you got Kakora Tarnu, you got Jordan Walker, who you brought in, Justin Harrington, who you brought in, William Davis, who you brought in. So you add into the mix now Darian Lewis, and you have 5 guys arguably battling for the 2 safety spots. I think William Davis could maybe factor into the competition at the nickel spot as well, as he has experience playing cornerback and safety. But between, all of those guys, you have really experienced group there, senior-laden secondary that you're going to be able to have between the corners that we just talked about and the safeties that you're going to have competing for starting jobs. So I think Darian Lewis comes in, improves the safety room because he's going to compete for a starting job there. So it definitely does improve things. But I don't think it can categorize as most improved. Let's pull up the list one more time. And let's talk about where I think West Virginia most improved this spring. As we look at the list, just talking quantity-wise, offensive line definitely comes into the mix with the 6 additions. But you also add 4 receivers, so that maybe, makes them factor in. And I think you add guys that are going to compete for the starting job. So when we look at it, what's going to make an impact? Who's going to make an impact at each position here, right? Jalen Knighton is going to compete, for the running back 2 job. He's going to get a lot of carries. So that probably is, one that's going to improve that running back room. Wide receiver, Christian Hamilton, Justin Smith-Brown, Logan Ramper, all going to compete for playing time and potential starting jobs on the outside spot at receiver. So that's multiple guys. So that definitely improves the wide receiver room. It's definitely a candidate. Tight end, not as much quantity-wise, but I think quality-wise, it's definitely high up there with what you added in this cycle. Barnes is a guy that's probably going to be your day one starter. Ryan Ward is a guy that is extremely highly thought of there at the position. Offensive line, I think we've talked a ton about. It's really up for grabs all 5 positions on that offensive line. And when you add 6 guys into the mix, multiple of those, I'd say probably at least 3 of those, maybe 4 of those that can compete for starting jobs. You definitely improve that unit. So it's definitely a candidate here. Defensively, Eddie Kelly, I don't know if he'll start, but he's going to get snaps. It improves something there, but I don't think it's categorized for most improved. Linebacker, I don't think it's up for most improved, although Ben Vogel's extremely underrated. Devin Grant as an edge rusher, extremely underrated. And then I don't think safety can necessarily be most improved. So I think, I'd love to do an offense and defensive one, but I think the most areas that you improved here are areas on offense, funny enough. So I think for me, probably offensive line, if you had to pick one, just because of sheer volume and the ability of those guys there listed to compete for the starting job. Other than that, I would say probably receiver or tight end tied for second there. So I think most improved this spring, offensive line, receiver, tight end. You definitely got a really good addition in Knighton on the offense there. But I think, offensive line, probably the most improved area this spring, with close runners up being, your wide receivers where you got guys that are going to compete there. Defensively, if I had to pick one, I would probably say you most improved the linebacker spot just because Ben Vogel is another guy that you needed to have into a rotation there. John Lewis could get some snaps, and Devin Grant, I think, has a chance to really help you as an edge rusher there at the bandit position and maybe even start at the bandit spot. Him, Siders, and Curtis Jones Jr. is going to be one of the more underrated competitions on the roster here in fall camp, which there's going to be a ton of competitions here on the roster in fall camp. We've taken a look at the roster, we've taken a look at the transfers and kind of picked out where West Virginia improved most in this portal cycle. But let's not forget, these guys are joining the roster as well. Now, it's a lot less likely that any of these guys will be getting reps right away, but they are going to be competing. And a lot of spots are available for West Virginia, so we'll see what happens. You see some freshmen and JUCO additions that'll be joining the roster over the summer as well. Once they enroll and once these transfers that we talk about enroll, we'll do future roster updates and add them to that roster tracker and talk about these positions further in the future. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun position battles to track. I think West Virginia improved multiple positions for that roster here in this portal cycle. To me, the most improved position this spring, the offensive line. And I think that that's a good thing for us to be able to say, because that's what we all wanted to happen here in this portal cycle, right? And West Virginia went out and did that. They most improved the offensive line, but they go out and get guys that can compete for starting spots and help them get snaps this upcoming season, add multiple positions on offense and defense. So that's my thoughts on where West Virginia most improved, plus a surprise roster re-addition there with Noah Braham. I'm going to catch up on some of y'all's comments, and then we will wrap up the show here as I search for my coffee so I can take a swig of it as well. My mouth's dry, but appreciate you guys that tune into this one live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Those of you on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel, subscribe here to get access to our pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes in addition to these live streams. Those of you that watch on YouTube, if you're watching live or on a playback, hit the thumbs up button. Help us out with that YouTube algorithm. If you didn't get a chance to chat live, throw your thoughts in the comments. Appreciate those interactions as well. And appreciate you guys that listen to the audio version on any podcast platform. Leave us a rating if you're listening there. With that being said, I'll take a swig of my coffee and I'll catch up on some of your all's comments here that were in here with me live, and then we will call it a show here. Hey, Matthew, good to see you. Jay McClanahan, channel member Trey Edwards in here as well, saying good morning. Hope all's well with you as well, Trey. And Trey says his starting three receivers are Vaughn, Bray, and Gallagher. I like it. I like it. Not a bad prediction there. I think that definitely I think that Vaughn and Gallagher are the most likely out of those three. I think Bray has a good chance to start on the other side, but I'm just interested to see how the competition turns out with, Logan Ramper being involved, Hamilton, Smith Brown, and can't rule out Jeff Weimer coming from, the junior college ranks as well. But, if you're a betting man, that's probably a good bet to take there, Trey Edwards, on those three guys, because they certainly kind of maybe have a leg up being here in the spring. We'll see how it turns out. Cam Vaughn would be the one I would be shocked if he wasn't starting day one. You guys know, to me, that's wide receiver one this year. Hey, what's going on, WVU Mountain Lair with Kenny? Good to see you in here as well. Drum Wolf, good day, Mountaineer fans. He says, been away for a while. Good to be back. Glad to have you back, Drum Wolf. As he says, he likes the new look. Oh, yeah, you might have not had a chance to see that. It's only the second show I've had since I completely rearrange the office and flip things around. My back used to be up against this wall here, so completely kind of flipped the set and changed things. Gave me more room to work with, and I like it a lot better myself. So appreciate the kind words there, Drum Wolf. Eric Flower says sports books have season totals out. We are at 4.5 to 5.5 over under. Tony said one had us at 4. I don't know which one. Well, man, I'm definitely going on DraftKings if theirs is up, and taking West Virginia on the over on that one, because I think that the floor, is probably 6 wins for me personally. We'll see how things shake out, but that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it right now. We'll see if that ends up staying true. But, hopefully it does. I've made over-under bets and missed them before, but if it's at 4, 100% take it. Bet the house on it. If it's at 5.5, maybe you're getting into a little bit iffy territory there, but I think West Virginia is going to be a bowl game team this year at least. So I'd still take that one too, personally. I think that they're underrating us a little bit, but that's just the way we like it as Mountaineer fans, right? Just the way we like it. Drumwolf says very excited about this season. I think Rich Rod and WVU will shock the Big 12 this year. Drumwolf, I love it. We love the optimism here. We love throwing on those golden blue glasses and keeping it positive here. And I got a good feeling, man. I got a good feeling about things as well. I think that they got a chance to be sneaky good. How good? We'll wait and see. Our season prediction roundtable will be coming in August. Can't wait to do it and talk about that further. But I think they got a chance to sneak up on some people. I definitely, like I said, would take the overs on those bets Eric was talking about. So we'll see what happens. Eric says, we got 2 easy wins. I think we can eat out at least 4 more. I'm confident we go bowling. Me too. I kind of like the way the schedule sets up this season, myself personally. That road game at Ohio is a little bit tricky, but I like having a group of 5 and an FCS on the schedule this year, and not having 2 Power 5s for the first time in a long time. That should buy us another win potentially, right? So it should definitely be over that over-under number mark, I think. Drumwolf said, finally got the WV flag out and hung it outside this year. Hey, good to see. Good to see. Eric Flower says, I think we have upgraded at every spot or added depth with little to no drop off. We have a better head coach, better defense coach, and a whole sloth of position coaches. I agree with you. I agree with you, Eric. I think so. I think that is one thing I will say about this portal cycle. We talked about the difference in strategies last portal cycle, doing more volume, this time doing more quality over quantity, and going out and kind of targeting the areas they felt like they were, necessities to go out and get guys at. So I definitely think they improved those areas. When we saw that, when we went through the list there, improved running back, improved wide receiver, improved tight end, improved offensive line, improved defensive line, improved your edge rushers, improved your secondary, even with another safety to battle in there. Even if you don't want to include secondary, you improved every position but the secondary, but you certainly improved the secondary in the first portal cycle. So yeah, I got to agree there. I really do think they did a great job in this portal window. Matthew says, I think we upgraded every spot, but if we're talking about the most improved, I say it's offensive line. Hey, so we're in agreement here on the subject of the stream here. The question that we asked here on the title, where's WV football improved the most this spring? Me and Matthew are agreeing that it's offensive line, but have improved in a lot of areas. That's why I thought it was a fun topic for a stream here, is where we improved the most, because we've improved in a lot of areas for sure. Eric Flower says the O-line should be good, and we have a whole stable of capable running backs. Indeed, we do. And as WV Mountaineer with Kenny adds, +4 speedy wide receivers. Exactly. Added some speed to the receiver position. I like that as well. So tight end is a beast room as well, Kenny. I like that as well. I mean, we'll be using some 2 tight end sets for sure. So, yeah, I like this, man. I like this. I think that'll be another fun topic, as Kenny talks about a beast room, is once we officially add these guys to the roster, then maybe we'll go back and say, what are the strongest position groups for West Virginia for the upcoming season? Because I think that running back's definitely one that you could throw into that mix. You guys have talked about how loaded I think that is. So that'll be a fun debate to have in the future. But for this one, I think West Virginia most improved the offensive line this spring. But the fun part about it is that they've improved a lot of position groups, so it's a fun debate to have. So hats off, tip of the cap to the West Virginia staff and the job they did in this portal cycle. May not be done yet. If they go out and add a couple more players, we'll talk about them on future streams. But in the meantime, in between time, we got plenty of fun roster topics to talk about, plenty of position battles to talk about leading into the season, and a lot of stuff that'll carry us through this offseason here in the Rich Rod 2.0 era. Appreciate you guys checking out this stream as we talk about a roster re-addition and Noah Braham to the tight end position, and then kind of go through position by position breakdown of the post-spring transfer additions and see where we feel like West Virginia improved the most. And it was a lot of fun chatting about you guys with it. And you guys that didn't get a chance to tune in live, throw your thoughts in the comments there. Let me know where you felt West Virginia improved the most. Appreciate those interactions as well as we continue to try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation, rather. And you guys that watch on YouTube, if you just hit that thumbs up button, help us out, whether you watch live or in the playback. We really appreciate that. And be sure to subscribe here to stay up to date on the West Virginia football roster news, transfer portal news, all that good stuff as we head into the Rich Rod 2.0 era. And we can't wait for it. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.